Hanging out today with Bryan Callen, comedian, actor, podcaster, just genuine great guy. Met him 2 years ago, and we instantly just started breaking each other's balls. You'll see in today's episode, we get serious. We talk about unions, we talk about politics, but we talk about life in general. You're going to really enjoy this episode, so let's get to it. I'm Sean O'Brien, General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters.
Put your helmets on, buckle your chin straps. It's a full contact sport.
We're going to find out who has a better bad idea. All right, listen, we are fortunate to have Bryan Callen here today.
You got my whole resume there. You got
No. Listen, I don't even read that shit.
The list.
But, you did Joe Rogan the other day, and I noticed you were smoking these big Cuban cigars.
Love
right?
them. Yeah.
So, they're probably high end.
Well, they were made for Joe. So if somebody makes cigars for Joe, I'd imagine they're going to use their best wraps and tobacco.
Well, I don't want to try and one-up them.
Yeah.
Okay? We don't have the fancy cigars, but I do have this for you. I mean, nothing but the best.
You got a little joy mode for me?
A little joy mode for you?
You want me to put that in my coffee?
I want you to take it right now.
Take it right now.
I just want to see what happens.
Listen, no, I'm already working on, I've got hot blood, as they say, because I'm Sicilian, half Sicilian. You understand that. But the other side's Irish.
Yeah.
Which is probably why. And I got to say, as I look at your face, and we've talked about this before, there's an uncanny resemblance to you, your coloring, and my 3-year-old.
Well, we do have the same physique, and I am in California quite often.
I know.
Listen, I could probably go back in my calendar.
No, I don't want you to do that. No.
I mean,
no, this is it.
I've paid child support before.
And that's what I'm talking about. I'm going to shake you down for that because I'm outraged.
I think your kid does look like me. If you can pull up Boss Baby. All right, let's take a look.
By the way, it's very true.
Let's take a look.
Very true. Oh, there it is.
I think the one working out there. See that?
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of look like that. Then the one with the
same symmetry.
With the tie.
You don't have much of a neck. You've got it's more head. If you had a neck, you'd be a little taller. Here's the thing. The turtlenecks are not your thing.
No.
Collared shirts,
not,
right?
No, definitely not.
But I'm very happy with your shoulders and your arms.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Because last time I saw you weren't in that.
Are we going to do a
shape.
podcast? Are you going to ask
Sorry.
me out? Are you going to ask me out?
Well, I know. I get lost. I get lost in your eyes.
I hear you.
I get lost in your brown eyes.
That blue shirt makes your eyes pop.
It brings out my nose. It really pops things. It's sky blue.
So what's it like being a famous comedian, actor, podcaster?
It beats working for a living. That's all I'm going to say. I find it amazing that I get paid to do what I got in trouble for in school my whole life. That's what's amazing about it.
Where the fuck is Gill, Mass?
I don't know.
You went to high school there?
No, I didn't. I went to high school in Northfield. So Northfield, Massachusetts.
Right.
Maybe it's close to Gill.
Population of about 1,500 people.
Farms. Yeah. When I was there, there was nothing there.
How was that?
There was literally one store with a pizza joint.
Now you went to school there. How many years?
4 years, because I was in Saudi Arabia with my family.
Right.
And when you were in 8th grade, you could not go. There was no high school for expats. They didn't want to deal with the drug issue, so I had to go. I had a choice. The kids, when you were going to school back then, and I had a choice between going to boarding school in Switzerland, where I'd have to speak French or whatever, or the United States. And I had a nostalgia to be in the U.S.
Don't you think Switzerland in high school probably would have been better dating ability?
I think that now, of course, right?
I mean,
I want to wear
population.
I want to
1,500 people, 630 people in your high school.
I know.
And by the way, you were an athlete, right?
Yeah.
What did you play?
I was a wrestler.
Yeah.
Right. I'll double leg you right now.
Let me ask you, please.
I'm
listen,
just saying.
No,
I'm just saying.
I probably welcome it.
Yeah.
But
you stretch skin over a cheetah, and you get kind of close to what I'm dealing with. Listen,
what was the name of your high school?
The name of my high school, and there's no other way to say it. You got to say it with a bit of a New England. Northfield, Mount Herman.
Okay. And you were considered a hogger.
Yeah.
What's a hogger? I mean, I know what a hogger is slang-wise from where I grew up.
Yeah. So do I. Sean, keep this PC, okay? Look. I never really identified with the mascot. If we were called again the cheetahs, it would have made more sense. But the thing is, I got a lot of fast twitch muscle and I got speed. But the hoggers were our mascot. If you were a football player or a basketball player, The thing about me is that I didn't grow, so I had to be a wrestler. If I had been a bigger kid, I would have been a football player or a basketball player because that's what the girls all went to, football and basketball games. No girl is going, you guys want to see the wrestling match? These guys are in singlets.
I mean, you guys did wear provocative clothing, though.
Yeah, I know. So if you were somebody who was attracted to the same sex, maybe you'd be in the stands. But there were very few girls at my wrestling matches.
No kidding.
Okay, yeah.
That's hard to believe. But what is a hogger, though?
I don't know. It's a.
Can we get like a definition of that? Is that something we could pull up? Maybe
you got to go to the dictionary, the slang dictionary,
Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, whatever it is. No, look. At the end of the day, we were getting to Switzerland would have been good, but I think that now, like the idea of wearing scarves and skiing, learning how to ski. You know those guys who do this?
You got good hip movement.
Yeah, I do have very good hip movement. I would have been a great skier. And so those are the kinds of things. To speak French, you know what I mean? Yeah. To have a French girlfriend and a convertible. Ah, bonjour, chérie. Viens ici. Tu prends un café ou non? Look at that.
That'd be hilarious.
You know what I mean? Yeah. The minute you start speaking French, it makes you horny. A hogger. A machine tool that takes heavy cuts at high speed.
That was your mascot.
Well, if I'm running routes in football, they call me Heavy Cuts.
Heavy Cuts?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's beautiful. So what made you want to be in Hollywood?
Nothing made me want to be in Hollywood, but I think I wanted to be an actor because I didn't see any other option. I don't think you can be... I think if you're an artist, there's this, we can get dramatic about it, but maybe there's some truth to it. It kind of chooses you. You don't choose it, right? And so I was so moved by movies. I remember I saw Raging Bull. And it was two things that happened to me. Listening to Springsteen when I was a young, teenager, and watching a movie called Raging Bull and other movies. The way
it's based on a true story.
Yeah, but the way it made me feel, like it's sort of this idea of like, when you watch something, when you hear a great song, when you see a great movie, when you're laughing really hard at great comedy, you forget you're human for a second. You forget you got to go to the bathroom. You forget, you got your insecurities. You forget about the fact you want to eat. You got to sleep. Something happens to you, it kind of makes you believe in God, if you hear something great. And I think that feeling was so deep in me, and I wanted to be part of it in any way I could. I wanted to be the manufacturer of that feeling. I was just so astonished. I'd never seen anything
during your high school career.
Yeah.
Did you think you were going to be doing what you're doing because you went to American University, bachelor's degree in history?
Yeah.
So, that's a path to being a lawyer.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, you're raised to be sensible. Mm-hmm. You're raised to be a good boy. You're raised to walk that straight line. What do you mean an actor? A comedian? What are you talking about?
Right.
That's the most insane thing I've ever heard. You may as well be a senator.
Well, I'll tell you, my son. And
yeah.
It's funny you say that. Great kid. You've met him. You spent time with him. He's in the plumbers union. He's 23 years old. Couldn't ask for a better kid. Both my kids. And I get notified because, they don't tell me anything. I always hear it secondhand that Sean's doing stand-up comedy. And my first reaction is, he's not even that fucking funny. Right? And I'm like,
by the way, that's great for him. Having a dad who goes, you're not that funny, is exactly what a comic needs.
Right. So I'm saying to myself, you're in the plumbers union. You're a journeyman. You're making great money. Be happy.
Yeah.
And then I take a step back and, I'm like, I want this kid to be happy.
Yeah.
I want him to fulfill his dream. If that's what he wants to be, that's great. But, I don't want to be the fucking blunt of his jokes, which I am.
You're going to be.
Right.
And you should be.
Right.
And you should be. That is your cross to bear, my friend.
Right.
The Lord put him on the earth to punish you for your sins.
So I'll tell you a funny story about him. So he announces he's going to be a comedian. And, the comedians, when we grew up, Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, those guys were hilarious.
Yep.
But the shit that come out of their mouths, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, my kid's going to be saying this stuff?
Yeah.
So I'm real cautious and protective of my kids. So this gets announced that, he's going to be a comedian. He's got a show coming up. I had no idea this is going on. I'm very close to my kids. And so, of course, what I do, I call up all my friends, the Dan Pascantillis of the world, Brian Hatch and a bunch of them. We're all very close. And I refer to my friends as cops, robbers, and clergy. So we were told by my son, when I say we, my ex-wife and I, and my brothers were told by him, I don't want you at my comedy. I'll let you know when I'm comfortable. You can come see it. So what do? I dispatch all my friends to go to his first comedy show because I'm nervous that some asshole is going to be heckling the kid if he's horrible.
Of course.
So,
already protected.
I'm getting the text messages, from my mother, from my brothers, and everybody else saying, "Hey, we're going to his show tonight. We're going to his show tonight." So I get a text message from his mother, and she says, "I'm so nervous for him tonight." Blah blah. I go, "Don't worry about it. I got it covered. Everybody's going to see him." She's like, "Call it off." So it was kind of like that movie. Did you ever see that movie?
State of Grace?
State of Grace, right?
Did I call it or what?
You called it.
Remember that?
My favorite movie in the world.
When Gary Oldman's walking with his team, they're gonna kill the guys, and the guy goes, "I hope you're not thinking about a war. We'll bury you."
Yeah.
Remember that?
That's exactly what happened.
Great
So
movie.
the show's about to start 3 hours prior to it, and I get the call, "You better not stop." So I had to call all these lunatics that were
Call
going
it off.
there.
Call it off.
I'm like, "Don't show up. I don't,
Turn around.
That's your first instinct, but we eventually were able to go watch him. And he's pretty funny. And one of the funnier times is I took my mother, who is very, very protective, and there's a bunch of comedians going on, and they're talking some outrageous shit, like sexual stuff and everything. And my mother's just sitting there. And I'm like, "Pretty good, huh?" She goes, "I don't think this is funny at all."
A Catholic Irish lady.
Oh, yeah, crazy. Stone cold killer.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
here's the thing about stand-up. You're not supposed to be funny in the beginning. It's very difficult. I always equate it to fighting. So you got a kid who's a tough guy in the neighborhood,
right.
Okay? Now,
no formal training.
Now, bring that kid to a fight gym. See what happens to him. I don't care how tough he is.
He's going to get humbled
He's going to get humbled real quick. Put some gloves on him and see what happens with just some guy in that gym.
Right.
Just get a guy who spars with pros and see what happens. And, to be really good as a boxer takes forever under really good tutelage, and it's very difficult. I don't think stand-up's any different. I don't think the piano's any different. You want to be a great piano player, you want to be a great actor, I'll see you in 10 years. Everything should take forever. We live in a society now where everybody's selling a shortcut. You can make a lot of money if you are a winner at capitalism and you have some kind of a page on Instagram to teach people that they can just do these 3 things, never do these 6 things, and read these 4 books I read, and click that link to take my and you can drive a Lambo and fly private as well.
Social media influencer existed, or they'd be making people be making a living off of it?
It's the bane of our culture in many ways, right? And we'll navigate through it as we always do. But that is what I love about comedy. And I could say the same thing about fighting. It's one of the reasons I'm a fight fan. I could say the same thing about dance and maybe even singing. You can't fake it. I don't care who your agent is. I don't care how much hype. I don't care how many people love you in the audience.
You actually have to work on it.
You either have it or you don't.
Right.
And it demands your daily attendance. It demands your discipline and everything you have if you want to be good at it. Everything. Like this special I just shot at Rogan's in Austin two weeks ago. It's the best I can do. I can't do any better. Now, hopefully it's good, but it's literally the best I can do. It's good to be certain at 58. I'm still like, giving it everything I've got. That's a very refreshing thing. And hopefully he's going to be in that position.
You have to work till you're 90. You got kids that are like 2.
I do. I mean, I do. It's going to be awkward when I have to borrow money.
There's no time. Yeah, I mean, I'll lend you a few bucks.
I got to hustle, dude. I got to hustle. I mean, and you ain't kidding about that, especially because my wife is 23 years younger. Good thing I got really hot blood. Where's that joy mode?
You got joy mode right there.
Guys, this podcast brought to you by joy mode. Okay? It's good for endothelial tissue growth.
So you graduate college.
Yeah.
You moved to Hollywood?
I moved, no, New York.
New York.
No, I got to be sensible. I'm a banker. I got a job at Lehman Brothers. What are you talking about? I was
and you're probably awful with money right now, right?
The worst.
I'm glad you got out of that.
I give it so much. I'm like a muscular Mother Teresa. But I'm given. I got to be sensible. I got to be a banker.
Right.
What are you talking about? You can't be a comedian. So I tried to do some acting in college. Had some talent, maybe, sort of.
Who determined whether you had talent?
I had a one teacher who said, "You're the only person I'd cast in. You're the only person I'd take." I remember I did a monologue, and she quietly said to me, she goes, "You have something." That's all she said to me.
HPV.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's plenty of that. Gonorrhea, what are you going to call it? I mean, it's a drip. Take some pills. Don't be a bitch.
You'll be all set.
That's right.
Yeah.
But that was, then I stopped that and I said, that's silly. That's not for me. I gotta go be sensible. And I talked my way with a history major into the payables, receivables department at Lehman Brothers. And they kept me around for 18 months. And to quote my boss, she goes, "You were good for morale. You had everybody laughing, but I learned nothing. I couldn't be a banker."
So if someone said that to someone today that just graduated college, how fast do you think they'd be down at human resources? Or in therapy?
It was a different time. We grew up in a different time.
100%.
You know, feelings, I talk about this in my special, feelings, we're getting away from it now because it doesn't work, but feelings became sacrosanct. I mean, if you hurt someone's feelings, if you trampled on their sensibilities, your words were causing harm, physical pain. And you and I grew up in a time when if you were talking about how something felt, you better be talking about shoes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Are they comfortable?
Yeah, there was.
Otherwise, shut up.
There was very little emotional attachment to anything.
Yeah, my father. I remember my father, who's Irish, you know, a Marine. He found out his accountant was seeing a therapist. He fired the guy.
I feel like this is a version. Your life's a version of The Sopranos.
Listen, pretty much. My father goes, he needs therapy, and then I remember his another guy said my father comes back and he's got a face. We're in New York and he's doing this. He goes, "I'll tell you some people." I go, "What happened?" He goes, I won't say his name, but he goes, the guy's name. Let's say his name is John. He goes, "John," who I knew. He goes, "John is about to get in a cab." He looks at me and he goes, I go, "I'll see you later." And he goes, "Love you." Love you? I was checking my fly. Like, who are you? What? You love me? Like, for him, any of that shit was outrageous. Emotions were weakness.
So I started doing CrossFit at 40 years old, and we were all athletes.
No kidding.
No. So I remember my mother's awesome. She's 77 years old, and she's tough as nails.
Yeah.
And she's our rock. But there's no filter. So I start doing CrossFit, and you talk about, you know, direct conversation and, you know, not a lot of accolades, a lot of love, but not a lot of public affection, right?
Yeah.
So I'm doing this CrossFit stuff, and, you know, I'm a competitor like you, and I start competing, and I came in like second in my age group.
Wow.
So I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I said to my mother, she's like, "You doing that? What are you doing for that workout?" I go, "I'm doing CrossFit." I go, "I had a competition. I came in second place." I go, "First time out." She goes, "Oh," and this is her head nod. "That's nice." She goes, you know what second place is?" I go, "No." She goes, "First loser." I'm 40 years old.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
It's good stuff.
That's good. I love that.
But these kids nowadays, I mean, it's not the way we were brought up.
What's your Fran time?
My what?
Your Fran time.
Oh, I don't remember. That was
all right, I'm just
13
asking.
years ago.
It's not a big deal.
No, I don't know.
You know what Fran is?
It's a workout.
Yeah, you got to do 21. You take 95 pounds, it's 21 squat thrusts, 21 pull-ups, 15 squat thrusts, 15 pull-ups, 9 squat thrusts, 9 pull-ups. Go do that, and you'll thank me later. 5 minutes if it takes you, you're doing great, but it's the worst.
I remember doing the workouts, and, you know, 2 days later, I'm in agony.
It's crazy.
Remember the Filthy 50?
Yeah.
It was the worst. Absolute worst.
That's what happens. What you realize is that it takes very little. You can work, if you do it right, you can work out for 10 minutes. And it's all you need.
Oh, it's crazy, crazy. But you know what the good thing about it? There was every walk of life in that class.
Yeah.
I mean, there were people that were very out of shape, just trying to get in shape. There were older people, younger people. So it was a great team building exercise. But, you know, getting back to the comedy and getting back to your career, what was it like doing your first improv?
You ever been in a real fight where you can't feel your legs? Like you know, I don't think I've ever been more terrified.
I'll be honest with you, violence is the height of ignorance.
Sorry, I know. Every time I look at you, I think of Gandhi. It's so weird. I know, an Irish Gandhi. You have that energy to you. You know that
shamrock tattoo on Gandhi?
Yeah. I know you're the kind of guy that I can just cry on, and you would hold me.
I'm emotionally there.
Yeah, you're very much so. The first thing I think of, Sean O'Brien, nurturing, word association.
100%.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I might even read your story at night.
I could cry in front of you, and you'd be like, there.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't tell anybody.
I would be telling. I'd have a video of it.
Oh, I know you would.
I'd be throwing that out there.
You're a son of a bitch. I can't trust
like
you.
You wouldn't
at all.
do that to me?
I would.
Do you remember the first time you called me and told me that was my kid?
Yeah.
You call me.
I did. There's nothing sacred with me.
With baby mama's in the car.
Right there.
Right?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about baby mama later on.
Yeah.
But baby mama's in the car. And I'm not even expecting this because I got a day job that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, you made my day when you said, I got a problem with you. And I'm like, what the fuck's he got a problem with me for? I just met you.
Yeah.
You're like, this kid looks exactly like you, short, bald, and muscular.
That's it.
Where were you?
That's exactly right. And so my wife and I we had a talk. And,
How's she doing, by the way?
She's good.
All right, good. Tell her I was asking for her.
I will. Great. It's just a far away stare. I lose all the energy in my body. Anyway, yeah. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But what were we talking about before you started talking about having sex with my wife? I can't remember.
Again.
Right. Again.
No, but we were talking about your first time. You know, you were talking about how, fighting your first time was similar to
yeah, I mean, getting up on stage, when you're known as the funny guy in the group, and then everybody comes to see you, like you almost did with your son, you got to deliver. I remember being so afraid I had trouble moving my mouth, Yeah. And now, 30 years later, I don't even think about it.
Right.
It's getting up there.
It's like second nature.
Yeah, I think so. It's just as long as you tell them the truth.
So what did you like better at the time? Did you like acting or did you like comedy?
Acting. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be De Niro and Christopher Walken and Al Pacino, the guys I grew up with.
Who wouldn't want to be?
Right?
Right.
You wanted to be cool and you wanted to have a gun in your hand and all that shit. But my girlfriend, who became a very famous director, Patty Jenkins, directed Wonder Woman and Monster and all that. I made a speech at a wedding that was, funny. And she sat me down the next day and she said, I don't know what you're doing. You're trying to be this brooding, mysterious actor. You're not that. And your idea of masculinity is warped. You're a clown and there's nothing wrong with that. You're a silly goose. You're not some mysterious, deep, emotional guy. You're the guy that makes all of us laugh because you take the checkers board and throw it in the air, okay? And so she goes, I got 3 words for you: stand up comedy. And that's all she said, and I never looked back. That is literally what my son is so funny. My son is 13 years old. That kid it's like I'm raising myself. He's a carbon copy. Some of this stuff is just how you're built. And I can see it with him. For him, it's all about being silly.
Does he know who his dad is?
A little bit. His friends do now. So like I'll come there and his friends are kind of, I can see them, they stop and they ask me some questions and it's, so I think for him.
I'm sure the parents know who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And the teachers.
Teachers, they talk and everybody talks. So.
Especially when I tell them
how does your family, how does your son embrace your notoriety? You're out in public, people notice you, except for the UPS driver that we just saw out there.
That hurt my feelings.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I could have been a cup of coffee.
It's not your realm. It's not your realm.
I mean, but still, like all of a sudden he's got starry eyes looking at you, taking a picture, and then
you got a little jealous though. I noticed. She was like, "What about me?"
I'm standing there like this, like, "Are you kidding me? You're upstaging me," and then you force the guy to take a picture with me, and the guy goes like this. All right, I'll take a picture with him. That's what he said, and he's going to delete that picture.
That's part of the nurturing, being emotional towards your needs at that point in time. That's what I did.
It was a competition. It was you're a competitive person.
No, you are too.
Oh, I'm saying you had to one up me. Take a picture with my friend, the spore, the mushroom, the guy you didn't notice.
The guy that was a half hour late for work. You would have got fired if you were a half hour late.
I know, but I had a step class I couldn't miss. Yeah,
but it's gotta be a little difficult. Like you're trying to have some private time with your family if you're out. People must come up to you all the time and ask for an autograph.
Not really. I mean, it depends.
A picture or something.
Yeah, but I love it. I'm the guy who, when I get recognized, I keep the person there longer than they should be.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the level of my neurosis.
That's called kidnapping.
It is. Yeah. It is. You got any more questions for me? You guys can go now. Okay.
Here, ask me this.
Literally.
This, right?
My wife drives me nuts. My wife is always like, "Would you have to talk to everybody all the time?"
So I remember when I first saw you on a TV series, and this was probably in the mid to late 90s, It was Oz.
Oh, yeah.
What a series that was. Troubling to watch.
Very troubling. That was HBO's first sort of, the first time I think HBO said to the creator of any show, you can do whatever you want.
It was crazy. It was definitely a deterrent from going to prison, though.
It was It was the first time that I think TV became better than the movies. That was the beginning of this TV renaissance.
Yeah,
for
like
Sopranos.
the series,
Sopranos,
Entourage,
all of it.
which you were
Sex in the City.
Yeah, I didn't.
Sorry.
That's on my. I haven't watched that yet.
Yeah,
is it good?
It's funny. I did one episode. I watched it. I had a girlfriend who never missed a minute of it. It's so funny how she was whispering, and I thought, what the fuck is she doing? She's whispering. I'm following her around. She's having an affair on me. And then I'm like, this fucking, I'm gonna fucking catch her. No, I'm not even. But I'm
possessive.
No, but she's walking around whispering in the phone. So I'm like, what the fuck is going? So I come up behind her and I hear her go, yes, but I would never wear open-toed shoes with that kind of a dress. And I just thought it was outrageous. And I was like, all right, never mind. You're into. And she would watch that show for what Sarah Jessica Parker was gonna wear. I do the episode. I decide to watch one episode with her, and I'm standing because I'm not even gonna sit through it. I'm gonna stand. Okay, I got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and she's watching. And
so what is it? She's sitting on the couch.
She's sitting on the couch. And I'm standing. I'm not committing yet to sit down to watch the episode of Sex in the City. And I swear to God, I'm not trying to be condescending, but the girls are talking, and the first 10 minutes is the girls talking about the relationships. And I didn't even mean to do this. I'm ashamed of it because I was younger and I didn't know better. But I, under my breath, way too loud, I went, girls are stupid. And yeah, and I apologize for that. I was a dumb young man. And my girlfriend turned and she went, girls are stupid? Do you ever think about, you ever see what you talk about? Yards and like who can jump higher, who you'd rather have on your team, Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, or about fighting, or whether a hyena could beat a pit bull in a fight. Or I mean, But
this is useful information for us.
For us, if you go to
100%.
My wife at 57 at the time, I'm now 58. Thank you.
January 26th. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you, pal. Thank you. Well, you got me my joy mode, so I really
if you keep calling women stupid, you're not going to need that.
And I was young, and I apologize for that right away, and I'm wrong about that. What was I saying? What was I? Oh, my wife. I went to search something on Instagram.
I know her.
And my search history is animals eating other animals, knockouts, and then women with impossible. I don't know what they're wearing, but they seem to be. And she was like, "What's with these girls? They're wearing bikinis." And I was so embarrassed. I fell to the ground and faked an injury. I was like, I don't know. Somebody got a hold of my phone.
Did you get any sympathy?
No. She looked at me disgusted and walked out of the room. So I still have a caveman brain, and I think all of us do.
So speaking of the fighting and everything else, you were a huge MMA fighter. You trained jiu-jitsu as well, right?
Yeah, sure.
How are you with that?
I'll keep you busy.
I remember I had a certain altercation with someone that was public.
Yeah. And
I remember you reached out to a good friend of ours, Dan Pascantilli, and you said to him, "Tell Sean not to fight the guy. He's got cauliflower ears."
Well, that guy has had a lot of experience.
That's all right.
Yeah, but he's very good with submission fighting, and he's good striker. I can't have my friend, and you're a tough kid. I can't have you step into that guy. He's too good.
I think I said I would probably just run him over with a Cadillac.
Well, there you go. Now you can say that, right. but you can't fight a guy like that. He's too experienced.
So you've done one of my favorite movies is Warrior.
Yeah.
You were in Warrior.
Yeah.
How was that? How was that being on the set? I mean, Tom Hardy's a beast.
He's a beast. I mean, you're talking about a great actor.
Great actor.
To see that guy, he's just prodigiously talented. Mm-hmm. It's like when I did The Joker, I'm working with Joaquin Phoenix. You realize that this is why I'm never going to be an Academy Award-winning actor. I can't stay in character like that all the time. These people are almost masochistic of what they're willing to do with their bodies.
Look at you. You were in Kingdom series. Jonathan Tucker, Boston guy,
unbelievable.
I mean, he got that guy. He got in that character to a point where I've talked to him about it, and he actually dehydrated his body. Went through all these.
He's a star. Craziness. That kid, Jonathan Tucker, is to me, after being in this business for over 30 years, that kid is so good. He's as good as anybody working. Mm-hmm. Tucker needs to be a star. You put that guy in any movie, any TV series, he's going to stand out. He's very special. Jonathan's a classic example of a true actor, and he resonates. Some people like Jonathan Tucker or Joaquin Phoenix, they resonate. There's a vibration to them. When they walk in the room and you're in a scene with them, you're going to be about as invisible as I was to that guy who took a picture with you about 20 minutes ago. You understand? All right. You in that moment, you were Tom Hardy in that moment, and I was just
I felt like Michael Chiklis. I kind of look like him, right?
That's a good Michael Chiklis. Great actor, by the way.
Another Boston guy.
Great actor.
Another Boston guy. Yeah. Actually, the Shield was a great series.
Great series.
So you look at acting, right? We'll take that for a minute. You look at when you got into the business, there was motion pictures, there were TV series.
Yeah.
And now we have, fast forward, all this streaming media. I mean, is the pool of actors so big that people that are really talented get lost in the shuffle, or is it just so much content that it's hard to keep up with it? And talk about, because you're a SAG member, talk about your experience of being in SAG and what it looks like.
Well, I think overall, acting my business has changed exponentially since I got into it. And it used to be that when you did a great movie as an actor and you stood out, your career was made and you could buy a house and you could make this great living. Those days are gone. I don't even think there is such a thing as a star anymore. There's just, we've become too atomized. And I don't say too atomized like I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but there is something interesting about you can do something incredible. And what I mean by that is you can writing a great movie is so difficult. And then getting all the actors in the same movie and then editing it properly and all that stuff. There's so many moving parts that when a movie hits, when it's great, it's almost an accident, a happy accident. But when that would used to happen, it became part of the culture. It became part of how we spoke. Think about Goodfellas. What do you mean I'm funny? Like a clown? All of us were doing that. Joe Pesci became a huge star. De Niro, it was literally part of the zeitgeist. It became part of like how we interacted with each other. When there was a great Saturday Night Live sketch, Hans and Franz, all of us we were all doing it. We all knew what you were talking about. So there was something about art and movies and storytelling that orientated us as a culture and a people.
Well, you could identify with those characters. You could identify with the content of the movie, especially like Goodfellas.
Exactly.
You're spending time in New York. We're from Boston.
Yeah.
That lifestyle was prevalent back then.
It certainly was. Still is in Boston. I mean, it's crazy. But well, you wouldn't know anything about that. But the thing is this. I'm just saying. But overall, what's interesting about all of that is, to me, that's all gone. That's all gone. And so you can do something extraordinary and it'll trend for 24 hours. It doesn't trend for 2 years. No. I was talking to David Blaine about this, the magician. David would levitate, and we talked about that for 10 years. That guy's magic. David could literally turn into a bunny rabbit on TV, and 1 million people might see it if you're lucky, and that's a lot if you put it on, but you have to put it on social media. It might go viral for a little bit, but then it doesn't matter after 24 hours because something else is viral. So for people that are creating content,
kind of like the Hawk Tour.
Well, that's different though, because you can be an artist and create substance,
right? And
that's important, but you can also create spectacle. You can also just be somebody where the lens was on you for whatever reason because it was just a meme, and you can trend for a little while. And that's also a thing, but that's the cult of the amateur.
Right.
What YouTube has given all of us is a voice, unfortunately. So now everybody's got their take on why that helicopter hit that plane.
Crazy.
And apparently, the government wants to everybody's an expert on vaccines and on geopolitics and on astrophysicists.
Well, I think everybody takes a platform to get their opinions out, and no one else's opinion matters than the person putting it out there, which is not how we were brought up.
Well, experts and experience, there is no good here.
No.
It's not fun.
It's not a criteria, not a credible criteria.
Yeah, because when you talk to a scientist about something scientific, you know what they use? They use words like, I don't know, sometimes, maybe, it depends. There's nuance. You can't get clicks that way. You got to get clicks by saying they're trying to kill you. Yeah, I know. Listen, I'm not a doctor, but I've done my own research. Okay, dum-dum. I had my doctor explain to me how vaccines work. And bro, he was explaining to me. I said, "Why don't we get 74 vaccines versus 6?" He goes, "Good question. Let me show you." And he started breaking down how difficult it is to develop a vaccine. And after about 5 minutes, I was like, "Bro, this is way too much." He goes, "I know, and I'm just getting started." I mean, these things are complicated, and we owe much to the scientific method. The reason that most of us are alive, the reason you and I haven't had to, God forbid, bury our children, which was commonplace, is because of these advancements. And nowadays, it's just there's a lot of currency in saying, I'm right, everybody else is wrong.
I think there's a lot of divided opinions on a lot of situations, a lot of subject matter like vaccines. Everybody has their opinions pro or against. And it's such an opportunity out there because of social media, because of the YouTubes of the world, where it just becomes such a controversy. I mean, look, going to school as a kid, we had to get immunized, right? There was no question about it. You had no say in the matter.
Yeah,
but your parents had no say in the matter. You don't get it, you're not going to school.
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, if you choose not to get it, you're going to sit at the end of the class.
But you know how this, I'll tell you something. Part of this goes back to the lack of trust in our institutions. The problem is some conspiracy theories are actually true. Like the COVID thing, the lab leak theory and stuff like that, when they were telling us somebody ate a bat and real scientists were saying, I don't know, man, the lab is right there, bro. The lab, the gain of function research, there were very powerful people in this country that were involved in that. And now all of that was suppressed. When you do that to the American people, all of a sudden they throw the baby out with the bathwater. Well, they go, if you're lying about that, you could be lying about everything.
But couldn't Ozzy Osbourne? He bit the bat off a head. I bit the head off a bat, didn't he?
He did bite the bat.
So he never caused COVID 40 years ago.
Yeah, that's a good question. If you ever hear him talk, he's had COVID for a long time. He caught something else.
Did he get the fog?
I don't every time done, I'm not even sure what he's doing.
He had the fog?
Yeah. It's almost like he's singing but talking,
So I got to grow up kind of.
I got a bat in my throat just doing my Ozzy impersonation. Go on. What were you going to say?
So I kind of grew up. My dad worked for the Teamsters as a transportation coordinator in Hollywood. We never knew what he did. We just knew he worked a lot of hours, came home grumpy, like most fathers did. Probably didn't talk to us till we were 16.
That's right.
Right? But, the industry has changed completely. I mean, not so much from our perspective of behind the scenes, which I think, the majority of grips and Teamsters on the sets pretty much remain the same. There's always work. There's always something to be done. But like the acting, and it's changed so much because you see actors, and again, my perception always, anybody that was an actor was a millionaire.
Yeah.
They made a ton of money and never struggled. But the reality of it is that's few and far between in the industry.
I mean, that's the biggest myth is thinking actors, including famous ones, have money. The number of famous actors that have $1 million in the bank, I could count on my hand. I will promise you. I don't care what anybody says. I've just been around too long. Actors, first of all, are notoriously not very good with their money. Second of all, it's really hard to save money, especially in Los Angeles.
Well, I interviewed Casey Affleck was on the show a couple weeks ago, and he put a great perspective on it. He said, look, I do a movie, 1 or 2 a year. He goes, once that movie's over, I'm unemployed.
Correct.
And I'm looking for work.
He's a great example. Great actor.
And I'm looking for work. And he even acknowledged that in the podcast. He goes, look, there's millionaires in this business. I happen to be related to some of them. But that's not the norm.
No.
I mean, during the screenwriter strike and the Screen Actors Guild strike, I got a real fresh look when I'm talking to people at rallies and talking to people on picket lines. I made $25,000 as a character actor last year. And, I'm going to lose my apartment. I'm going to lose, I can't pay my rent. I mean, that's a reality we face every day as representing working people.
Yeah.
That if they're unemployed, they're going to lose their homes. And it doesn't discriminate. Well, it's prevalent in Hollywood.
It's funny, Sean, because when you are, there's something about being a capitalist and being an American where you hear a lot of times that unions will price themselves out of the market, or we can't compete with other countries. You heard this with the auto workers union, and there's always these things that happen, like anything else, this pendulum. So I was always immersed in the idea of let the marketplace decide, right? But then again, I've been a member of a union for 30 years.
Right.
And it's a good thing because what my union does is give me great health care. I never have to think about it. My union always ensured that I had a working wage because the truth is, as an actor, it was so competitive. All of us would have done it for basically free.
It keeps some sort of stabilization in the industry. With a conscience. This is what you're going to work for. Yeah. Because there's people out there.
And also breaks too.
There's people out there that would work for less than you just to be on camera. 100%. And that's not good for the industry.
And by the way, with new media and everything else, the unions become less and less relevant. It's just the facts. And so it really does become very difficult to make a living as an actor. Right. I don't care if you're on a Netflix series. That's 10 episodes. You want to do that? Let's do the math.
So what is an average actor, a B actor that's in a Netflix series for 10 episodes make?
Okay, so I would say you're on a Netflix series. First of all, they're going to sign you exclusively, so you're not able to do no other TV shows and things like that. So you're going to shoot that 10 episodes. That's going to take probably less than 3 months. All right. Now, you're going to take between $10,000 and $15,000 an episode. You're going to take that. They're going to give you that, and you're not going to go, I want 30. They're going to laugh at you. And the reason you're going to take that is because that's what they can get and that's what they're going to pay you.
And they'll get someone else to do it.
Of course they will. So I'm going to go crazy. Let's say it's 15,000. So that would be, what is that? 450 grand. That's a lot of money. All right. Let's say it's 400 grand. Now let's take that 400 grand. You live in California, bro. So we're going to pay some state taxes. State's going to take their 15% or 17% or 18%. And then we got federal as well. And that's probably going to be, I don't know, with deductions, let's say it's 35%. So we're going to take half that money from you already. Now, let's not forget also, please, that you also have to pay your lawyer, your agent, and maybe even your publicist if you're stupid.
Another 25%.
Or your manager if you're stupid, right? But the fact is we're all stupid and somehow you get locked into this. So that's another 30%. So let's just say after deductions, you're seeing, I'm gonna be charitable. You got a good accountant. You're seeing 200 grand. Okay, you got $200,000. Try living on that in Los Angeles.
Oh, live on think about it. The UPS driver you just met outside probably makes over $100,000 a year.
Sure,
and it's not 40 hours a week. It's 60 plus.
That's a lot of time.
And his wife's probably working. She's probably making maybe 80 to 100,000.
Yeah. So now you got
double. You get 200,000 coming in. They're struggling.
Because after everything, let's put it this way. If you're an actor on a Netflix series, you're middle class. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're not rich. You're not making a lot of money. All these actors that lost their house in the Palisades, okay? All their money was in that house. I promise you. It's a disaster, an unmitigated disaster. You're broke. You got to wait for the insurance. You're going to be fighting that. But at the end of the day, if you are in the business of acting, if you are in the business even of directing, it is always precarious. I got so tired of it. I got lucky. I was on the Goldbergs forever. But I got so tired of never knowing when my next paycheck was coming. That's why I got into stand-up. It's got to be unnerving. Well, that's why I got into stand-up. Yeah. I can go away for the weekend and make my mortgage. And podcasting. That's why I started doing a podcast in 2012. Because I saw Rogan. Rogan was like, get into podcasting, dummy. Forget this TV shit. You're relying on too many people. The problem with being an actor is you're relying on just too many people,
So one of the reasons we got into podcasting was not for the money, clearly, but it's being able to have a voice that's uninhibited, unscripted. My day job, I speak about a lot of issues. I speak about working people. I speak about politics. I speak about a lot of things and I get interviewed a lot. But the problem is you're on a 10-minute interview that is leaning one way or the other. And they are basically controlling the narrative.
Yes.
Why are podcasts so relevant right now?
Because most of life takes some time to unfold. Because you can't understand something in 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. Most of when you have a point of view or when you're trying to solve a problem, especially when it's relevant to society writ large, these things are complicated. You're pro-union, okay, but I know that there are nuances with that. you're aware of all the things that have to be kind of weighed and measured. You're dealing right now probably with the fact that AI, God forbid, is going to get rid of large swaths of working people's weight. I mean,
our biggest concern is automation.
I was going to say,
and
autonomous cars,
autonomous vehicles. Our biggest concern is protecting jobs, protecting middle-class jobs, and creating jobs.
I don't envy you.
As a result of it. I mean, it's a tough battle. We're fighting it every day in every industry we represent. And look, you're facing the same battles in Hollywood. If you're a screenwriter, you can be replaced by AI. Our biggest issue is protecting against, but that brings us to another subject. We fight every single day to protect jobs. Technology is great. I think everybody's embraced it. It's very convenient, but I don't think people realize the convenience is going to cause catastrophe at some point, right? With jobs and middle class. And we look at politics. You think about the political nature of where we're at today, and you look at a guy like Governor Newsom, right? Claims to be a Democrat, claims to be out there for working people. We had a bipartisan bill to protect against autonomous vehicles, to have human operators in commercial vehicles, which are 80,000 pounds plus, bipartisan support, and it went to his desk. And the first order of business was he veto it, right? He vetoes it. And here's the problem. We actually got that guy, we helped him through a recall election, labor. And that's the payback we get for helping him. And why? Because it's a corruptible process where the more money you have, the people that back you, like big tech, big corporations, they're trying to control the narrative and direction of this country. And it's not right. And we're fighting it every single day. And politics plays a crucial role.
Well, also, what you're also dealing, Sean, with other states that are reaping sort of the windfall of large moguls going there, starting their company. And so it becomes easier for them. Excuse me. So what happens, I think, is the worry is that you are dealing now with the inexorable rise of technology on an exponential level. And it's a little bit like when I think of you, sometimes I think of the guy who's pulling his sword out and he's standing and a giant army of horsemen is coming at him. And he's just like, there we go, and that is kind of part of what happens with innovation is destruction. The problem with, I think, what is unique about this particular thing called AI and general artificial intelligence is that it seems to be moving at an exponential rate. And if you talk to all the experts, even proponents are voicing the same concern, which is that especially as we're in this strange race with China, I don't know how the hell we avoid the loss of massive jobs because people go for what's convenient. So if I want an Uber, maybe I'll go with that Waymo, whatever the hell that is.
Waymo.
I mean, eventually something's going to happen where it's safer, it's faster, it's there. I don't know. But we all know that this is what happened. That's what happened with Amazon. That's what happened with, these things happen. I mean, in New York City, I remember back in the day, you would see guys, couriers on bicycles, and they were running paperwork back and forth. And it was a huge industry. And now with email, that just doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, it affects everything. I mean, technology has had an effect on jobs. There's no disputing it. But there also is an opportunity to create a lot of jobs through technology.
I hope so.
Where we have to look at, all right, great. We understand that there's such a thirst for convenience. You hit that send button, you want instant results. Well, what is the collateral damage as a result of that? And where can we actually create jobs where humans are going to support, technology like AI? We look at warehousing, right? Everybody wants robots. We fight against that every day. And that's the beauty of being in a union, because you have a contract and you have to abide by that contract, and you can protect jobs under that contract.
Yeah.
But that's not the norm in a lot of situations. But if there are robots in warehouses selecting goods and services, selecting products, well, who's fixing those robots? Who's maintaining them? Who's programming
other
them?
Robots?
Right. Well, that's what we have to protect against, right?
But
and it's crazy.
The challenge you're going to face, Sean, is that you're going to have companies that come along. They're small, and they are able to do an astronomical amount of stuff with a couple of robots.
Right.
And all of a sudden they take over the space. And that other company using human labor can't compete anymore. We're facing
some.
You're in the front lines of something serious.
But we're gonna have to fight. And you're gonna have unfortunately, it's going to take a bad situation where, an industry, we look at the ILA, the longshoremen, they just settled a strike in December where they shut down commerce for a few days. Huge impact. And
what were they fighting for?
I'll tell you what they were fighting for. Obviously, better wages, better conditions. But the biggest thing was these shippers, these billion-dollar shippers that bring products, goods and services over there from other countries. They're in China, for instance, the longshoremen over there. They're not longshoremen. They're robots. And they were fighting hard. These shippers saying, "Hey, we want the same over in the United States." And the one thing that, Trump's been very controversial in the first couple of weeks in office, but he supported, not automating ports, right? So that's a start in the right direction. Now, we'll see on the 101st day what direction this country is actually going to be going in. But, if you have a middle class, and I believe this because it's going to be our fight, that is willing to stand up and fight and show how technology, although we embrace it in certain arenas, that it's catastrophic for the middle class. There's going to be direct action taken all over this country to protect these jobs, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
People listen once you.
Well, we need a working wage. I don't know. Again, I know that there are people who would say, "Well, this is just the way it is, and we have to adapt." How do you adapt when you lose? How do you adapt when that quickly? I can't adapt. This is what I'm saying. When especially a young person. Human beings are having a tough time figuring out how we fit into this matrix.
I mean, you have a young family.
I do.
I mean, and there's the dispute whether whose family that is. But
I was going to say.
Anyways.
Yeah, I have my, my kids are all both named Sean 1 and Sean 2, which is really awkward.
It's like the Foremans of the world, right?
Yeah, but you got to give it up. If you can't beat them, join them. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But they may not have the intellectual ability to perform a lot of these jobs. They may not have the opportunity. What are they going to do?
Sean, more importantly is, what is the point of teaching my kids anything today when AI can do it better tomorrow? This is really what we're facing. I don't even know where look, there was a Google engineer, dude, who was talking to, he works in AI, and he was talking to a friend of mine at the playground. His kids were playing. And this guy, literally, he's a Google engineer. And he said, in 5 years, none of this is going to matter anyway, because no kids aren't going to be in playgrounds. And he goes, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "In 5 years, we're going to have silos. You'll have a place where the kid will just get into a room, and it'll be exactly like being."
How is that good for society?
Dude, we
perfect example is homeschooling during COVID. You look at the mental health issues with a lot of these kids.
I'll never forgive him for doing that to us.
No. You look at the mental health issues for a lot of these kids right now, the 20, 21-year-olds, 22, that didn't interact with anybody during that whole time. I mean, is that what we want?
Look, we are creating gods. I think like the lesson of at least the Bible is don't worship false gods, especially the Old Testament. And human beings have always had the sort of arrogance to think that we can create our own gods. That has been the bane of our existence. The idea that we're not beholden to a transcendent truth. We can be the transcendent truth. We can create our own transcendent truth. And in a way, without getting too religious about this, but we are all competing. China, America, the world, we're all competing. And sometimes you can compete downward. You can spiral toward hell, not toward heaven, in a way. I mean, I don't see how I fit into the blockchain, autonomous robots, and general AI. I don't know that there's any use for a
we don't come from that generation.
I mean, it feels like we're creating a world where this becomes outdated machinery, where I have nothing to offer. If AI can satisfy all of my sensations, there are a lot of really smart people, especially theoretical mathematicians and stuff, who believe we're already in a simulation. We're already in AI. Like this right here is actually not real. It's an illusion. And
I'm not talking to Bryan Callen right
now. No. I mean, who knows? I mean, you can touch me though, and I feel very real.
You're a sick man. That's
especially underneath this. I mean, because this is soft material. Well, I got a very hard body, as we talked about. Yeah. But it's also pliable and supple. You know what I'm saying? You see how I take AI?
You looked at me in a provocative way when you just said that.
I took a conversation about AI and I turned it sexual. I'll always bring it back to the bedroom.
Excellent.
It's amazing.
But we get into this conversation about technology and everything else. What role? I mean, this last year was a political revolution, right? Yeah. And what role do politicians play in this? Outside of taking big money from the people that are trying to destroy middle-class jobs and humanity, really, right?
Yeah. Well, I subscribe to the idea that government should always be treated as a necessary evil. That's George Washington's quote. The idea that you better be careful about looking to government to solve your problems. It becomes a leviathan. Government really isn't, if you think about government overall, we need government. We do. But you have to, like anything else, there's a middle ground, because government at the end of the day does two things. It passes laws and it raises taxes.
But don't you think government causes some of the problems?
Of course it does. Of course it does. I'll give you an example. Every time government comes in to try to solve a problem, okay, there's always a ripple effect. There's always something else. It creates, first of all, a cottage industry that'll spring up to make money off of those regulations. But let me give you a great example of when the British came into India and they were, they colonized India, a lot of the children and the Brits, the expats, the wives of the British officers were getting bit by cobras. They'd be in their garden, and it wasn't England here. This is not your England. A cobra would jump out and bite you. It'd be a king cobra or something, and your child would die, or your wife would die. Terrible things. So the British decided this is a disaster. The cobras are everywhere. People are dying. We've got to get rid of cobras. So they went out to the public, and they said, for every cobra you catch, we'll give you $1 or whatever it was, And so this is a country of a lot of people. So pretty soon, cobras were being, laid at the door of the viceroy and all these different places, and they'd pay them out. Well, guess what the Indians did real quick, because they're pretty smart? They started breeding cobras. They were breeding cobras in cobra pits because they'd been doing this forever. Yeah, and now they're killing them and they bring them to them. So all of a sudden the British find out about this, and the Indians go, all right, well, the jig is up. And guess what they did? They released all their cobras that they've been breeding. So now you got twice as many fucking cobras out there. And that's a good example of what happens when government tries to solve a problem. You got to be careful.
So have you been paying attention to any of these hearings that have been going on?
Mm-hmm.
What's your thought on some of them?
America as always, and so it goes. I love this. I love the founding fathers, James Madison, John Jay, Alexander Hamilton. These were the giants. They solved the political problem. And the reason they solved the political problem is that just the confirmation process itself, you've got to go have a conversation with every senator. And then you've got to face their barrage of questions and scrutiny. And this was all part of making sure government moves at a glacial pace. You don't want an efficient government. People think we do. No, you don't. It's not what the whole point of a bicameral legislature, the whole point of checks and balances where you've got an executive and you've got the judicial and you've got the legislative, you've got the House, you've got the Senate, is because you want to make sure that power does not rest in any one group's hands. That's the genius. You got to make sure it's a pain in the ass. When you're a president, you should always be complaining that you can't get anything done. You should be complaining that they won't let you. All these executive orders that Trump is doing, which are great, they're all going to be adjudicated. They'll all be caught up in the courts, clogged up.
Well, I think right away, one of them has already been stopped through the courts.
Governors, I had a conversation with Arnold Schwarzenegger about this. I said, what's the thing about being a governor? He goes, the fact that I can't get anything done. The fact that there was
much bureaucracy.
There are too many different interests. Mm-hmm. Within your own party, by the way. They'll come to you and say, Mr. Governor, you can't do that. I know that there's water over here and you want to bring it over here. You can't do that.
There's a lot of controversy in our world about the National Labor Relations Board. And Trump fired someone that was pro-union, Democrat appointee. Fired them, and a lot of talk, a lot of controversy going on, a lot of criticism hit my way as a result of it. But we're also working to get a Republican pro-labor nominee, Laurie Chavez-DeRima, confirmed to be the Secretary of Labor, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's looked at as, this is a bipartisan move by President Trump. She's pro-labor Republican, but you also have people on the far right that don't want to embrace this change of cooperation. And then you have people on the far left trying to destroy it as well. How do we get away from that?
I don't know, Sean, because I think about this when it comes to labor in your battle. And I'm sorry to say this, but the Maginot Line?
Mm-hmm.
right? You remember that? The Maginot Line where for you guys who don't know, it was when the French built this sort of like line of defenses. And what they didn't count on when they were trying to fight the Germans was that the Germans were just going to fly over that. They had a technology to fly over your Maginot Line and bomb the shit out of your, cities, and take over your country. And I sometimes I worry that what you are involved in, and it's not your fault because you're dealing with forces that are so great that you are left with this impossible task of building a Maginot Line while technology, this inexorable rise of technology is going to make everything that the weaponry, the dragon you're about to fight has no respect for your weaponry. You don't even have the armor or the weaponry to fight this dragon called AI, this dragon called autonomous robots.
And don't forget about that dragon called greed.
Well, I mean, that's always been there. That's always
worse than
been
ever,
there.
though.
Yeah.
Worse than ever.
But I think this is even... Look, and look, you got Larry Page. Was it Larry Page who accused Elon Musk of being a speciesist? Was it? In other words, don't be so favorable to human beings, dude. Like maybe there's no place for humans in the future. This is what he said. So you got a lot of people like that, bro.
Yeah,
coming up with
but
these...
there's a lot of people out there on both sides, whether it's Democrat or Republican, that feel that way. And look, I think although we might be outnumbered, to your point. We might have a monumental
Doesn't mean
task.
you don't fight. Doesn't mean you don't fight.
But the reality of it is, look, we got courage, we got conviction.
Goliath
we got boots on the ground.
It's David and Goliath, right?
What do you get out of a loss? We might have small losses, we might have losses, but we're going to get bigger, we're going to get faster, we're going to get stronger, and we're going to fight, and that's what we have to do.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate, you need a guy like you who basically spends his whole day fighting. Yeah, I'm serious.
We love chaos.
Yeah.
We love chaos. But you got to admit, there's no better feeling than going into a situation, being an underdog, knowing that the forces you're going up with, whether it's government, whether it's corporate greed like Hollywood, right? Or whoever that may be, Amazons of the world, there's no better feeling than knowing you're going into a fight with nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Nothing to lose. It's like a schoolyard.
You
bully.
couldn't sound more Boston, more Irish, and because I can't see a French guy saying what you just said. There's no better feeling than fighting for... It's because for me, it's I like to fight all these guys because
you sound like a pillow fight.
I sound like I'm coming on to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it requires a certain. As you're talking, I'm looking at you going, this. It's a good thing you had a mother the way you did. It's a good thing you grew up in Boston. It's a good thing you're Irish.
She's awesome. Wait till you meet her.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she'll be looking, sizing you up and down.
No, she looks at me. I've met her a number of times.
You know who her best
She's
friend
a huge
is.
fan.
You know who her best friend is?
We FaceTime all the time.
Yeah.
She wears that. She's got that. And I don't want to talk about what she wears, but we have a whole connection.
We are kind of related.
I was going to say, if you want to come out, my wife, I'll come out your mom.
Do you know who her best friend is?
Who?
He's like my mother's little government informant, Dan Pascantilli.
Dan is always behind the scenes.
Oh
isn't
my
he?
God, it's crazy.
That guy's always behind the scenes.
Like my mother tries to speak in code. Like she'll go, "Hey, I was watching. I heard this was said," and I'm like, "Where'd you hear that?" She's like, "Never mind." I'm like,
"Never mind."
Dan Pascantilli.
He's the eyes and ears.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah. He's like the what was his name? What was the character in Goodfellas?
Well, I was about to say he's the guy. He's
a Henry Hill to my mother.
He's the guy as you're being led off into like the woods to be taken care of. He's standing there like this, going, "Sean, it was just business. It's just business."
There's not a more loyal guy though.
There's not a. I love him. I love him. He's a good man.
So getting back to these Senate hearings, have you watched any of them?
I have. Yeah.
Tulsi
Gabbard's a friend of mine,
yeah.
so I'm rooting for her, and she's
taking a beating.
Yeah, she's taking a beating, but she's so tough. And I got to, as somebody who knows her pretty well, she's so principled. That the problem with Tulsi is she's so principled. Like Tulsi really holds the line, and she's just got a lot of courage, man. And I know a lot of badass special forces guys that absolutely love her. I've done a CrossFit class with Tulsi, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah, it was, and I'm in there with a bunch of CrossFitters, MMA guys, and SEAL Team 6, etc., shadowy warriors.
So you're walking in there, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at everybody in awe.
Yeah.
What do you think they're saying when you're walking in there?
Well, a lot of them were like, "What's with the bandana and those hot pants?" You know what I mean? And I said, "Well, I'm here to make sure everybody's happy after the workout." You know what I'm saying? So I'll be making cupcakes And they were like, Jesus, I mean, do you have to shave that closely? And I'm like, yeah, because a fire might break out and hair's flammable.
And then you just bust out to like, let's get physical from Olivia Newton-John.
After I apply olive oil, and it's got to be extra virgin olive oil. You know what I'm saying?
That must be an intense class, though, right?
That's only when we're doing some light wrestling. What was the question?
I don't remember.
Okay, sorry.
We go back to your deviant side a little bit.
Yeah, sorry. You're the one who leads me into it.
Oh, it's my fault.
I mean,
you're already blaming.
This is supposed to be a serious podcast. We're talking about the dangers of AI, and then you got to bring me back to CrossFit. No, but
better than
the confirmation hearings are again. It's America,
right? And
every time I see people voicing their opinion and senators shouting and grilling somebody, it's all part of the game. And if there's a great saying, somebody said this: if you run for president, you run for office, it's like going through 10,000 car washes. It's gonna suck, but you gotta hold the line.
I mean, the process I'm watching RFK's process, and it's like the pro people are throwing them bouquets, asking them the questions, and then the antis are just and that's what everybody that's going for this confirmation process. And I'm looking at this, watching it, going, who the fuck in their right mind wants to go through this?
Well, don't you go through that to an extent?
We do, but like
you do. I mean,
we do. But if I'm having a conversation with you, right, I'm not attacking you personally,
right, for
any transgressions in your life, whatever. I want to talk to you. I want to dig down. I want to get deep and know what actually you're gonna do for the job we're interviewing you for. And it should never get personal.
There's a friend of mine, he's a podcaster. His name is Joe Rogan. I don't know if you heard of him, but he was saying that it's important as you get older not to identify with your ideas. Like, understand that it's just an idea and you might be wrong. So be willing to change your mind, right? Sometimes we don't even know why we believe what we believe, but we might be defending.
A lot of times you're a product of your environment.
That's exactly right.
Right? You learn something
defending
around
your
the
culture, your parents.
Yeah, but I mean, there has to be room to change. There has to be people's opinions should matter.
Yeah.
It should never get personal or attacks. I mean, I've lost friends over taking a neutral position as a union leader in this election.
There you go.
And it's insane. It's crazy.
But that's what happens. That's exactly what happens. I had to take myself to task that way. I realized for the longest time, maybe because I grew up overseas, the minute somebody criticized the United States in any way, I would go on the attack mode. I'm just a patriot, and it was just blind patriotism. And then you start to look at, you gotta be objective about some things.
I mean, you got to think about this too. A lot of our opinions and a lot of our positions that we've held strong on early in life that we may have changed is a result of geography. It's a result of where you were brought up. It's a result of
being a winner, one of the winners of history.
Right, exactly. So it's, there's one lesson that I've learned in my experience as, being from Boston, being fortunate to have the job that I have, represent 1.3 million working people, is that, everybody's opinion matters. Yeah. And you got to take into consideration that you may not have the right opinion. People may not agree with you, but it shouldn't end dialogue, and it shouldn't end collaboration to try and, do things that are good for people.
You got a job that I don't envy. I don't know. I can't believe you haven't written down anything I've said this whole time.
No.
It's amazing.
No,
I'm giving you all the stuff that you can use and nothing, huh? You got it all right up there?
Right up there, man.
In the head?
I know how it is, yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Just give me credit.
So what's on the agenda for you in 2025?
Just a lot of working out. I'll keep up with my kung fu classes and
doing comedy on the weekends.
I'll do. Look, I shot my special, and now I'm in that terrible position where I've got to throw it all away and come up with a whole new act.
And you've got a very successful podcast. What is that?
It's called Off Limits and Fighter and the Kid. And we just had Antonio Brown on. That was a lot of fun, but yeah, that's great. I also have a business where I come up with commercials for different brands, and that's been blowing up because I've got a think tank of comedians, and basically I say I believe that the only way to get somebody's attention nowadays is be funny. So every time you see a commercial, every time somebody's trying to sell you something, I can't wait to thumb through it. We're done. But there is a marketplace, and there is a lot of value in coming up with ads that provide value that get people laughing, and you can build. And we've been doing that, so that's
the best therapy in the world. Laugh, right?
It's been the great. So why not commercials the same way? Why not make commercials that are just as funny or interesting as the content you're watching? And so that's what we've been doing. So,
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you coming on here today. And,
anytime, buddy.
It's an honor and privilege to have you here.
No, it's an honor and
Thank
privilege
you.
for me, my friend.
Thank you.